What room is that?
If it's the room right above him, it should be 209.
John, do you copy? It's room 209. Amy says nobody's checked into that room, and there's reports of screaming coming from that room. Amy, he's on his way down there right now. What's going on, John? There's no one checked into that room. There should be nobody in there. Wait 1 second, John. Amy, are you there? Yeah, John says he hears the screaming coming from that room. And I hear it too. But we're sure that no one's checked into that room. Correct? John, just wait. We're going to get a hold of the police. So, I would wait for the police, John. Amy, John's going to enter the room real quick just to check, make sure, see what's going on. Wait one. John? John, are you there? Okay, Amy, John wants you to call the police right now if you don't mind. He says no one's in there, but that all of the furniture's been turned upside down and hold on. He says the carpet's been ripped up and that the shower is on, but nobody's in there. Man, that's scary. I'm officially freaked out now.
You know how they say the truth hurts? They weren't kidding. They were not kidding. The truth does hurt. Reptilians are very real. I spent 3 years trying to disprove them, only to put the whole puzzle piece together as if it was made for me. So, I'm just saying, sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, because you're learning about the truth. It doesn't change everything that has been happening around you your entire life. It's just the truth. It is very important to note that they are a native terrain species to Earth, meaning they stem from Earth. So while David Icke actually does report a lot of information correctly, his instincts, intuition, intentions, his intentions are not good. So I do not trust him. They are from Earth. They are not anywhere else. I think if they're anywhere else, they might be on Mars, but I highly doubt that too. A lot of people are listening to their intuition, and I see it. Why are the elites building bunkers? Why are the elites building bunkers? Well, reptilians took out the fucking dinosaurs, so, I mean, the theories are close. I'll tell you that now. The theories are pretty close, but, no, yeah, reptilians took out the dinosaurs. They're the whole reason why Earth is the way it is. You guys are caught in this matrix. You guys think that you're living this life that's okay. Well, my kids are okay. I have a job. I'm good. Are you? Are you good? Because I'm pretty sure everyone's like struggling to pay bills, or they're in an unhappy marriage, Their kids are just, no one is happy right now. I don't give a shit what you say and what little lie you tell to yourself. Nobody is happy right now. So, when I tell you that reptilians are very real, and they're not gonna show themselves to you. They hide. And even if one of you have been around them, you're not gonna see them as a reptilian. Even if they're in reptilian form, physically, you're not gonna, they do not want you to see them. They do not want to be seen. They do not want, no, hell no. For being such fucking assholes, they're straight up pussies, okay?
As many of you know, certain e-files have come out that have revealed some pretty disturbing things about certain elites. And some of it is so bad that I think it's obvious that there's some demonic element to it. I'd go so far to say that some of these people may not actually be fully human. They may be hybrids or shape-shifting beings. And in support of this, consider this testimony from Juliet Bryant, who is a verified survivor of Epstein, where she talks about him turning into some kind of lizard or serpent.
I've seen anyone else turn into anything like that. And it happened. It was like a weird hologram, and it had like big black eyes. You know, and I also saw Epstein shapeshift on the island. You know, when I was on the island, I saw Epstein like suddenly, and people have actually asked some pretty good questions recently. It wasn't like I saw him turning like the Incredible Hulk. What happened is, it was when I was taken in the bedroom the one time, and he had like a blanket up to here. And then I looked away and I looked at him, and suddenly it wasn't him anymore. It wasn't like I saw him turning. It was like it was him, and I looked away, and then when I looked back, it wasn't him. There was this weird creature. And then I looked away, and then I looked back, and it was him again. I also saw Epstein shapeshift on the island. You know, when I was on the island, I saw Epstein.
Oh boy. Okay, so go back and watch that creator's video. So this is what I was talking about on my page. The whole reptilian thing. And now it's coming out in the files. I didn't know it was going to be in the files. I figured it might have been, but worst subject I hate talking about, right? So now we have a victim of Jeffrey who is saying she witnessed him and Ghislaine shapeshift. Am I surprised? No. But the way she's describing this, you need to go back and listen to it. I kind of am starting to have a theory that maybe they're not actual hybrids or real reptilians. Maybe they are being taken over, like kind of like using the human body as an avatar, if that makes sense. This is what I'm getting. Just a thought. And I want to know what you guys think. But God, I just opened or started talking about this topic the other day, and now here it is. And I really hate this topic. Okay, so some people asked what a reptilian is, and I think it would be good to go back and watch that video if you don't know what it is.
Hey, yo, did y'all see this? It states that Juliet Bryant, who is recognized as an Epstein Island survivor, said that she witnessed Epstein shapeshift into a reptilian devil-like creature, and I believe her 100%. I made you aware that most of these beings aren't actually human, and that they utilize bioholographic projection technology in order to bend light photons to camouflage their true appearance. Most of your world leaders and political powers are actually shape-shifting extraterrestrial biological entities from the Alpha Draconis star constellation, and some of them are also from Meldick, all right? Some of them are also what you call troglodytes. This is why a lot of them lack empathy and compassion. Trust me when I tell you, most of the people you see on a continuous basis, especially when you go to places like the supermarket, Walmart, your Targets, and things of that nature, believe it or not, a lot of those people aren't really human. And once you begin to see beyond a veil, you would notice liquid crystallization. I'm talking about some of your news reporters, some of your celebrities, some of your favorite entertainers are actually extraterrestrial. This is also why we need to bring the bells back. The bells were removed because they hate the sound of high-frequency vibratory resonances. And I believe ancient Tartaria was our last reset. And if you know about Tartaria, they had lots of bells. They had quartz crystal rejuvenation chambers. They had a lot of technology. And there were giants that actually walked amongst man at that time. They're your top 4 malevolent extraterrestrial biological entities that are currently subjugating this realm. I'm talking about the insectoids, your mantids, the reptilians, the Palladians. Now, all the Palladians, again, aren't evil, but you have some that are preaching peace, love, and light, but really utilizing deception. And then you have your grays. And a lot of the smaller, shorter grays are actually biological AI in a sense, all right? They're robotoid in essence. The taller grays are your real biological grays, all right? But then the smaller ones are the ones that typically are sent by the larger grays to do their bidding. It's very important that we raise our frequency. Right now, they're trying to put us in a state of fear and panic with a lot of the mass shootings. If you pay attention, the closer we get to raising our frequency, due to the age of Aquarius, they try to envelop fear, all right? And they utilize voice-to-skull technology, but then they also stage events as well with crisis actors, all right? And again, this is all for the purpose of pushing us to the root chakra and the energy of fear so they can harness loose. I recommend embodying the heart chakra as much as possible, grounding, sun gazing, fasting, doing all the things necessary to ensure that you raise your frequency and not going into the energy of fear, because that's what they want. They want you in the energy of fear. You must remember that you're divinely guided and protected at all times. Always say that affirmation, that I'm divinely guided and I'm divinely protected. All right. Once you notice and you speak these things into fruition, at that particular point in time, you begin to change and terraform your reality. Recommend cleansing and purging the body with chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the substance responsible for giving plants its green pigment, and it's going to be the best for removing toxic metals, microplastics, as well as raising your alkaline level. Remember, in ancient times, before the cosmic invasion, before we had an iron molecule, we had a magnesium molecule. And again, cosmic family, this is why when you watch movies like Avatar, you see the characters the color blue. And this is why characters like Isis and Osiris were depicted the color green in ancient Kemetic pantheon. It's because, again, before we were hijacked and our massive trees and crystal structures were knocked down, we had green skin. All right, consume lots of chlorophyll. I do have it available on Holistic Remedies, link in bio. The toxic metals in our blood need to be removed in order to properly handle the great solar flash. Toxic metals such as aluminum, lead, cadmium, mercury, barium, and thallium are placed in our blood by way of chemtrails, all right, as well as our irrigation systems. Then when the toxic metals get in our blood, they utilize bioweapons such as 5G, 6G, and 7G to emanate certain deceptive frequencies. And then those frequencies ping off the toxic metals and microplastics, all right? And they also use graphene oxide. I recommend Detox 19. It's also phenomenal for decalcifying and detoxing the pineal gland, and it's great for removing the toxic metals. Detox 19 also contains NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, which raises glutathione. Glutathione eliminates free radicals due to the fact that it's a very powerful antioxidant. Do have the Detox 19 Heavy Metal Cleanse available on Holistic Remedies, link in bio. It's very important, cosmic family, that we begin purging ourselves of all vampiric parasitic entities. The purpose of these parasites are to keep us stuck in the root chakra. They literally stop Kundalini energy from rising up the base of your spine. And what that Kundalini energy is cosmic cerebral spinal fluid. They're basically the physical manifestation of archons or demons, and they were actually introduced to this planet by the insectoids. The purpose of the parasites is to keep you anchored to fleshly desires as opposed to spiritual desires. They make you over-sexual. They make you crave low vibratory food that you shouldn't consume, and they're typically placed in processed foods. That's right. Most of your Takis, your Doritos, your cookies, your Oreos are manufactured with parasite eggs, and when they get in your colon, they increase in size to send deceptive neurological signals that make you crave more of that same food. Sweet wormwood, black walnut, and whole cloves are the 3 best components that not only kill parasites, but to also eradicate their eggs. This is what I highly recommend, and I do have the Parasite Cleanse available on Holistic Remedies, link in bio. For all high-quality herbs and metaphysical products for spiritual elevation, click the link in my bio and visit Holistic Remedies, your extension to ascension.
This young woman disappeared after going to investigate an abandoned research laboratory alone. For a long time, government agents found no trace of her. Until much later, a recording made by Sydney on the day of her disappearance was leaked to the public by an unknown source. Now, we're going to watch this leaked tape firsthand and dive into this mystery to find out what happened to Sydney.
Camera on, light on. Here we go.
Sydney heads toward the facility. Once inside, she begins exploring every room and gets a little jump scared when she finds this doll. Even though this lab is abandoned, it seems to be very well preserved, which is a bit strange in a way, but nothing out of the ordinary. She continues exploring the place until she sees this. Terrified of what that might be, Sydney does everything she can to escape. Sydney was never alone in that abandoned place. Worst of all, her companion doesn't seem to be home. Sydney manages to get into the elevator and says she's losing her mind. When she reaches the floor, she's met with another series of corridors identical to the ones we've already seen. It's as if she's going back to the same place. As she heads toward a door that finally looks like an exit, Sydney comes across room 24. And after all the terrible things she's heard about this room, of course she goes in the opposite direction. Sydney seems to have finally escaped that thing. In a pitch-black room, she finds a document lying on the floor. The document refers to the incident that took place in room 24.
Who's there?
A noise catches Sydney's attention.
28 girls hospitalized after using the Ouija board. Now, these girls were vomiting, fainting, having seizure-like episodes. All of these things happen after using the Ouija board. Now, I did a story on this 2 years ago, and there was another recent story about people using the Ouija board, kids using the Ouija board at a slumber party and having to be going to the hospital. Now, this is not an ER visit. Hospitalized means that you are admitted into the hospital, and that's severe. Well, these girls were playing and they ended up going home afterwards. This wasn't at the actual event, and all having different events. One of them were vomiting so much that they were dehydrated and had to be hospitalized. Fainting. These things happen. Ouija board is not a game. Mattel should not be selling these things. This is inviting demons into your home, and there's lots of stories. If you guys want to comment and leave your story about
Obligation underground storage has begun. All the vehicles are moving in. We got the families moving into place. This is the mine where we're going to be held up for months. We're preparing, man. I told you, we had to get ready for what was coming. So we've got our families and stuff. Food storage is good up. We're packed up pretty tight in here, but it's going to be good to go, man. And I mean, better safe than sorry. So we're getting loaded up. Everybody's moving in. We have different families in different sections. Right on.
Vending machine killer. On April 30th, 1985, a 45-year-old truck driver stopped near a vending machine in Fukuyama, Japan. He was exhausted from work and was looking for an energy drink to help him power through the rest of the day. When he approached the vending machine, however, he noticed something surprising. A bottle of Oranaminsi energy drink was already in the pickup tray. Thinking he'd lucked down on a free drink, the truck driver wasted no time chugging it down. What he didn't know was that this would be the last drink he would ever taste. Instead of the refreshing feeling he was looking for, he felt something horribly wrong with his body. A bitter, burning sensation quickly spread throughout his throat, followed by an intense wave of nausea. It wasn't long before he was lying on the road in excruciating pain. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where doctors discovered a lethal amount of paraquat dichloride in his system. Paraquat is an herbicide that was quite common in Japan at the time. More importantly, it's also highly toxic to humans. When ingested, it can lead to severe nausea, throat inflammation, internal chemical burns, and eventually death. This is also why it's been banned completely from over 70 countries to date. Unfortunately, despite knowing the reason for his illness, there was nothing the doctors could do to save his life. There's no antidote for the deadly chemical today, let alone back then. So, after hanging on to his life for a month, the truck driver passed away on the 30th of May 1985. At first, investigators assumed that given the nature of his work, he might have accidentally encountered the toxic substance while on duty. However, after reviewing his haul records, they found no trace of this herbicide or anything remotely linked to it. This left them with only one conclusion: the chemical was mixed into the drink he consumed just moments before collapsing in agony. But with no leads or concrete evidence, they couldn't determine whether it was a murder or self-inflicted act, resulting in the case getting shelved for the time being. Now, while this might sound absurd today, you have to understand that paraquat was readily available in the country at the time. You didn't need any prescription or identification to purchase the chemical, leading to over 1,400 people using it as the poison of their choice in 1984 alone. In other words, the possibility of it being self-inflicted was just as high. However, just as the investigators were about to give up on this case completely, they received tragic news. Another person had fallen victim to the same poison after consuming oranaminsi on the 5th of September. Then another 6 days later, and one more 2 weeks after that. By this point, it was clear that someone was deliberately poisoning vending machine drinks across Japan. This was the work of a deranged serial killer. Unfortunately, this supposed killer was also extremely thorough. He didn't leave any fingerprint or DNA evidence on the drinks he tampered with, and only targeted vending machines with no CCTV cameras nearby. As for why his victims willingly drank the unknowingly poisoned drinks he left behind, that had to do with the buy one get one free promotion oranaminsi was running around the time to entice younger consumers. However, since some people only wanted the one drink, they often left the second free drink near the vending machine as a gift for the next person. This was common enough that people didn't find the laced drinks suspicious and drank them without a second thought. Sadly, this method was terribly effective. By the end of the year, this mysterious vending machine killer had claimed the lives of 12 victims and had severely injured 35 more. But as I mentioned earlier, this killer was a master of hiding his tracks. He operated all across western and central Japan, as well as Tokyo, making it near impossible for investigators to pinpoint his location. The lack of evidence also made it difficult to figure out his motive. Some speculated that he was doing all this to extort money from Otsuka Pharmaceutical, the company that made oranaminsi. This is because in 1984, a group called the Mystery Men with 21 Faces threatened to poison food products unless the companies paid them money. So some believed that the vending machine killer was a copycat and wanted something similar. However, this theory didn't last very long because Otsuka Pharmaceutical didn't receive any demands or extortion letters from the perpetrator. Additionally, the killer also began using other drinks, like the drink Real Gold and even Coca-Cola. Hiroaki Iwao, a Tokyo professor of criminal sociology, proposed a more disturbing theory regarding the killer's motives. He stated, "It is not uncommon for Japanese who live under tremendous pressure, both on the job and in overcrowded communities, to let out their frustrations by hurting someone else. The person responsible may even wait around to see who buys the poisoned drink. He or she may find this is a kind of exhilarating release from the tensions of life in Japan." But even if this was the truth, it still didn't bring investigators any closer to catching the suspect. Left with no other options, the authorities turned to the public and launched a nationwide campaign on the 27th of September. They placed signs and distributed leaflets telling people to avoid suspicious free drinks and to properly inspect the cap seals on their beverages before consumption. They also instructed vending machine owners to investigate their stock for any anomalies and told chemical shops to monitor their customers more closely. It's unclear how effective this campaign was, as the number of victims kept increasing even after its launch. But then something unexpected happened. On the 17th of November, the murder spree stopped completely after the death of a 17-year-old girl. She was the only female to have died from the poisoning. It's possible that the person who committed these atrocities had a moral code against harming women, though that's nothing more than a baseless speculation. Due to the complete lack of evidence, the vending machine killer was never identified, cementing this case as one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in Japanese history. Little Rock serial stabber. On April 11, 2021, the Little Rock Police Department received a distress call from South Pulaski Street regarding a potential homicide. When they arrived at the scene, they found a middle-aged woman lying on the street with stab wounds all over her body. This woman turned out to be 41-year-old Deborah Walker. She was homeless at the time and was living on the streets when this incident happened. She was quickly taken to the hospital where medical staff discovered that she had been stabbed at least 15 times. Despite lying on the street, bleeding for what may have been hours, she miraculously survived and managed to regain consciousness the same day. Investigators also visited her in the hospital to gather any information she could provide about her attacker. Unfortunately, she was attacked somewhere between 1 and 4 a.m. It was still dark outside, and all that she saw was that her attacker was a tall, African-American male with a slender build. Now, in most other similar cases, such limited information would hardly be enough to generate any leads. But in this instance, the description Deborah provided left the investigators in disbelief. That's because her attacker's profile closely matched the perpetrator of another incident that took place about 8 months earlier in the surrounding area. The victim of that incident was 64-year-old Larry Eugene McChristian. He was living in Little Rock with his daughter Sarah, who was on probation at the time. On the 20th of August 2020, he had a medical emergency and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. He was discharged from the hospital the next morning. However, when the hospital staff tried to contact Sarah so she could pick him up, she wasn't answering her phone. So they gave Larry the information about a nearby homeless shelter and a bus token to get there. Later that day, Sarah came to the hospital looking for her father, only to learn that he'd been discharged hours ago. She then reached out to the homeless facility Larry was told about, but they didn't know anything about his whereabouts either. The only option she had was to file a missing persons report and wait for the police to find Larry. 2 days later, on the 24th of August, Sarah received the call she was waiting for. Tragically, it wasn't the news she had hoped for. According to the official report, the Little Rock Police Department found Larry's body on South Gaines Street at around 2 a.m. They identified him by the hospital discharge papers he had on him. More importantly, he had multiple stab wounds on his body and was unfortunately already dead by the time the police arrived. His death was declared a homicide, and the investigators began looking for clues almost immediately. This proved quite impossible at first, since there were no witnesses and there wasn't anything that could be used as evidence at the crime scene. However, after inspecting the surrounding houses, they had a major breakthrough. The CCTV camera outside a nearby house had captured the suspect walking down the street when suddenly he spots Larry and begins walking towards him. After committing the crime, he tries leaving the area, only to stop, go back, and stab Larry one last time before fleeing. As mentioned earlier, this man matched the profile Deborah gave to the police, leading investigators to believe she was attacked by the same person. While looking into older cases, they also connected the same killer to another murder that happened in the area on September 23, 2020. The victim of this incident was 62-year-old Jeff Welch, another homeless man who was living in an abandoned home. On the morning of that day, Jeff's friend found him on the porch of his house with a stab wound on his neck. By this point, the investigators knew they were dealing with a deranged serial killer. However, just as they uncovered the connection between the three attacks, another tragedy unfolded. On April 12, 2023, a day after the attack on Deborah Walker, another one of his victims was found on the Wright Avenue overpass. The only thing in common with these 4 attacks was that they all involved homeless individuals, and they all happened between 1 and 4 a.m. There seemed to be no clear pattern on how the perpetrator selected his targets. This left the Little Rock community terrified to leave their homes, fearing they might become the next victim of the serial killer on the loose. After realizing the potential danger of the situation, LRPD began spreading awareness about the man who is now being referred to as the Little Rock Slasher. They also turned to the public to ask for any information they could provide on the matter, and even announced a $20,000 reward.
We also need your help. If you have seen anything suspicious or have surveillance cameras on your homes or businesses in this area, please contact us at 501.
Unfortunately, despite having CCTV footage of the suspect, the Little Rock Slasher was never caught. The case remains a mystery to this day. Or at least that's what the official reports say. While researching this case, I came across an Arkansas-based blog called the Snarky Media Report. The authors of this blog did their own investigation into the slasher case, and what they found was shocking to say the least. Put simply, they claim to have found the true identity of the killer after talking to multiple locals and Deborah, who, according to their blog, already knew the identity of her attacker. They also uncovered many details about this supposed killer, including his criminal record, which reveals that he has already served 2 prison terms in Arkansas for felony convictions of domestic violence. Also, his history with drug abuse and how it made him very agitated and violent. The authors of this blog also claim to have contacted the alleged killer's previous landlord, who gave them this image of the perpetrator. Which begs the question, if they know so much about the slasher, including his legal name, why didn't they give this info to the police? That's where the case goes from creepy to bizarre, since, according to them, they've already given everything they had to the relevant authorities. Despite this, the Little Rock police didn't make any progression in catching the serial killer. Snarky Media also published a video of the Little Rock mayor and police chief refusing to answer questions about the case. This seems to hint at something incredibly shady going on behind the scenes. That said, there's no way for me to confirm if the authors of the Snarky Media blog are telling the truth. For all we know, their whole investigation is made up, and this is just some random guy who has nothing to do with the 4 attacks, and it's all a ploy to make the Little Rock Police Department look bad. Most of the information they've gathered seems to check out with what's released publicly by the authorities. The only discrepancy in their investigation is the age of the suspect. Officials believe the slasher to be young, possibly in his 20s, but the authors of this blog state that the person they found was 46 years old. Unfortunately, this is where the leads end. Whether Snarky Media is telling the truth or not remains uncertain. What is certain, however, is that the case remains unsolved to this day. The Little Rock slasher is likely still out there and can continue his murder spree at any moment. Thanks to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. I never considered myself much of a coffee person, but recently I found myself getting really into it, though I quickly found out that it can get extremely expensive if you want to get the good stuff. I'm talking like somewhere around $8 for a single cup of coffee at my local shop. I decided to get my own equipment at home, but I still had to buy the actual coffee itself, which sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to find the most quality coffee for an actual fair price. Although, honestly, I didn't even know where to look for this. That's where Trade really helped. They offer a subscription-based, personalized coffee experience that matched me with coffee that best suited my specific preferences. It was super easy to get matched with something I would actually like without much prior coffee know-how. I just made this one I got called Foundation, which was really good. With the weather finally starting to get warmer, I've recently been experimenting with their cold brew coffee. This week I tried the Cold Front blend that was developed especially for cold brew methods, and this one came out nice too. It was really smooth and not too bitter, which I like, and it even had a little bit of sweetness, almost like a nice caramel or chocolate taste. They sent me a Hario cold brewer, which made it really easy to make, and for a limited time, Trade is giving these away for free when you sign up for a cold brew subscription at drinktrade.com/chilling. That's drinktrade.com/chilling to get your free cold brew maker with select cold brew subscriptions. On February 17, 1997, 21-year-old Patrick McNeil went out with his friends. He spent the evening out drinking with his friends in the Dapper Dog Bar in Manhattan. During this time, he likely drank more than he could handle, resulting in him throwing up in the bar's bathroom before leaving in a highly unstable and disoriented state. Patrick was then seen turning left onto 90th Street, heading in the direction of the East River. This was the last time anyone would see Patrick alive. Following this night out, Patrick vanished into thin air. Despite extensive efforts, authorities found no leads or clues to his whereabouts. That is until April 7, 1997, when Patrick's lifeless body was found in the East River 50 days after his disappearance. Duty Sergeant of the NYPD's Special Investigation Division, Kevin Gannon, was called to the scene to assist with the body's recovery and examination. Kevin had been a seasoned detective for years, and by this point there was little that could surprise him. However, the circumstances surrounding Patrick's death disturbed him to his core. The more he looked into it, the more strange the situation became. For instance, Kevin noted that Patrick's body wasn't decomposed enough to have been floating in the river for a week, let alone the past 50 days. He also found burn marks on Patrick's body, hinting at the possibility of him being restrained prior to his death. Kevin knew that something wasn't right. Unfortunately, due to the complete lack of evidence pointing to the contrary, Patrick's death was ruled as an accident. Kevin kept thinking over this feeling for the next year before coming across a case that reinforced his suspicions even further. On February 13, 1998, another body was found in the same stretch of water. This body was later identified as 22-year-old Lawrence R. Andrews, who had gone missing on New Year's Eve after celebrating the event with his friends in Times Square. After getting on the case, it didn't take long for Kevin to notice eerie similarities between the two cases, as both bodies were found within yards of each other. Both of them were also young Caucasian males and were on track to have successful careers. They both disappeared in one of the most crowded cities in the world without any trace as well. Most importantly, Kevin also found similar oddities in both cases, where the bodies were a lot less decomposed than they should have been, and there were burn marks indicating possible restraints before their death. Lawrence's case prompted Kevin to look for other similar cases across the US. He enlisted the help of fellow detective Anthony Duarte and a criminal justice professor, Dr. Lee Gilbertson. Together they began investigating these cases, and soon a chilling pattern began to emerge. In total, they found 45 different instances of young men dying under shockingly similar circumstances as Patrick and Lawrence. Most of them went out for a night of drinking, became more intoxicated than usual, disappeared shortly after, and were later found dead in some body of water. Almost all of them were also Caucasian and on track to have a high-paying career like engineering after college. Most disturbingly, however, they also found graffiti of smiley faces near the bodies of at least a dozen different victims. This led to the 3 investigators creating the smiley face murder theory. According to this theory, these 45 and possibly many other deaths from the 1990s to 2010s weren't accidents in the slightest. Instead, they were murders committed by a single deranged person or an organized group of serial killers. This is the only logical explanation they could find to justify the many oddities and similarities in these incidents. That said, while this theory makes complete sense to some people, others aren't convinced one bit. Criminal profiler Pat Brown, for instance, called this theory ludicrous. She believes that the idea of connecting smiley faces, one of the most common graffiti symbols, with murders is just absurd, stating, "It's not an unusual symbol. If you look in any area 5 miles square, I bet you could find a smiley face." The FBI also completely denied this theory in a statement, reading, "The FBI has reviewed the information about the victims provided by 2 retired police detectives who have dubbed these incidents the smiley face murders and interviewed an individual who provided information to the detectives. To date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of a serial killer or killers. The vast majority of these instances appear to be alcohol-related drownings." However, despite these setbacks, the 3 men have stuck with their theory. They're still working on finding evidence to back their observations. That said, if their hunch is correct, it would mean one of the most wicked serial killers in American history is still at large today. I-70 killer. Robin Fuldauer was a 26-year-old Indiana University graduate who was working at an Indianapolis Payless shoe source store near I-70 in 1992. The 8th of April was supposed to be her day off. However, just as she was getting ready to relax at home, the employee who was supposed to man the counter called in sick. Left with no other options, her manager called Robin and told her to cover the shift instead. Robin wasn't very happy about this emergency shift change, but she reluctantly agreed, arriving at the store at 10 a.m. and starting her shift as usual. Unfortunately, her day was about to get a whole lot worse. Everything seemed normal until 2 p.m. when the manager called the store for a routine check. To her surprise, Robin wasn't picking up the phone. She kept trying for a few minutes before giving up and calling the Speedway gas station neighboring the shoe store. One of the gas station employees, a friend of Robin's, went to the Payless store to see if she was doing okay. However, what she found inside left her confused. The store was in slight disarray and some of the shoes were missing from the shelves. The cash register was also open and there was no money in it. Most concerning of all, there were no signs of Robin anywhere. Her friend called out Robin's name, hoping she was just in the back and would respond. But when she didn't hear anything from Robin after minutes of standing in the store, she became worried and called the police at around 2:20 p.m. The cops arrived within minutes and began searching the store for clues on Robin's whereabouts. And it wasn't long before they made a devastating discovery. They found Robin lying in the store's back office, covered in blood. It was already too late. During questioning, an employee from the store across the street claimed to have seen a strange man loitering around the shoe store a couple hours earlier. According to this employee, the man sat on the curb for about a half hour, rifling through his bag and staring at the Payless store. They then saw the same man a few minutes later trying to hitch a ride back to Interstate 465, which was about a quarter mile from the store's location. Unfortunately, they were too far away to get a good look at the man's face. Given the money stolen from the register, and without any other leads, investigators filed this as nothing more than a robbery gone wrong. However, they couldn't have been more wrong. Because just 3 days later, something similarly tragic happened to 23-year-old Patricia Smith and 32-year-old Patricia Makers. The two were working at a bridal shop in Wichita along I-70. The incident happened a little past their usual closing time as they were waiting for a customer who had a pickup. When they saw a man approaching the store, they assumed that it was the customer. However, this man drew a gun on the two after entering the store, took them to the back, and executed both with shots to the back of their heads. As the killer was leaving the store, he crossed paths with the actual customer the girls were waiting for. Without hesitation, he aimed his gun at the man and ordered him to head to the back of the store. but the customer defied his command and ran, narrowly escaping with his life. He later helped the police draw a sketch of the killer. Unfortunately, the sketch didn't provide much of a breakthrough. By this point, the authorities were certain they were dealing with a serial killer, but despite their efforts, the killer's spree continued. By May 7th, he had taken 3 more victims in small, low-traffic stores along the I-70 highway. By the time investigators managed to compile a few more sketches, the I-70 killer stopped his quest and went into hiding. That is until 1993, when he claimed 3 more victims along I-35 in Texas. He tried to hide his identity by changing his weapon, but the investigators were quick to notice the similarities. One of his victims, Vicky Webb, also managed to miraculously survive after getting shot in the neck. If he were ever caught, Vicky's testimony would have been crucial in bringing him to justice. Though the I-70 killer was never found, and the case went cold for nearly 3 decades. However, then, in 2021, investigators released CCTV footage of a murder that happened in 2001. The suspect in this footage looks strikingly similar to the I-70 killer's sketches, potentially giving authorities the lead they need to finally catch him. It's likely only a matter of time before he runs out of places to hide and is captured. But for now, he's still out there, evading police and leaving the case unresolved. We can only hope he doesn't take any more victims in the meantime.
So it's September 25th, and the rapture that all were speaking about on social media and all over the place never happened. And keep in mind that during all of this rapture talk, individuals gave away all of their life savings, they gave away their homes, their cars, and other things as well. And one person has even gone as far as to give their children away to CPS. And now that the rapture hasn't happened, they're trying to get their children back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, take a look at this video.
We've all heard about this religious psychosis people have been experiencing because they believe the rapture is happening. Well, I don't know if any of you saw this video of the woman giving her kid to CPS because she thinks the rapture is going to...
I can't fathom the thought of parting with kids, especially knowing that a rapture is coming. But, you know, as a parent, wouldn't you want to bring your children with you if it was going to happen? So it just makes me think.
I've talked to a man who was in the military who went on a retrieval mission, and their team's job was not to recover the craft so they can reverse engineer it, but what they were supposed to retrieve off that craft was data, information. When he got inside the craft, he said it was a language he did not recognize. And the scientist came over to him and said, get your stuff together, we need to get out of here. You're not going to find that information in your book. Because he pulled out a manual trying to figure out what this language is. And as he doubled down and started looking through it more, he's like, whatever, man. The guy doubled down on him and said, we need to get out of here. And he's like, why? And he's like, that's Enochian language. And he said, what's that? He said, it's a demon language. You need to get your stuff together. We need to get out of here. And they retrieved the data. They destroyed the craft with thermite. So that was a situation where they didn't have to bring the craft to a facility or anything. And I get the sense that they didn't need that physical craft. They just needed the information on it. All this information, all this stuff that they're trying to share with us is to build a wall between us and Christ, that we can't see Christ. We can't see God because we are our own gods. That's their ultimate goal.
What if the scariest part of The Exorcist wasn't fiction? In 1949, a young boy known only as Roland Doe was reportedly subjected to an exorcism after his family claimed terrifying things were happening around him. Objects allegedly moved on their own. Strange sounds came from his room, and during the ritual, witnesses claimed the boy spoke in voices that didn't sound like his own. The priest continued the exorcism for weeks. Eventually, Roland appeared to return to normal. Years later, those events helped inspire The Exorcist. But here's the disturbing part. Some people connected to the original case insisted that what happened to Roland was never fully explained. Maybe it was possession. Maybe it was something else. But if the story was only fiction, why did so many people involved in the case refuse to forget it?
me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous and had his hands like this.
Let that sink in. She was 16, on a boat, with no escape, with an adult predator and no one to help her. She ran, she screamed, and no one came.
I bolted and I hid wherever I could think of to hide on a boat. There was no jumping off and swimming away, and there was nobody who was going to, I realized that there was nobody who was going to be empathetic to my situation, that this was nothing.
That last part is the chilling detail that nobody talks about. She realized it was nothing new, meaning the people on that boat, they had done this before. This was routine. This was normalized. This was the system. She survived that night. But the trauma didn't stop there. Hayden spent decades battling addiction, depression, and PTSD, all stemming from what was done to her when she should have been in high school. And for 20 years, she stayed quiet. Fast forward to 2023. Hayden decides to write a memoir and finally tells her story in detail. And when she does, something explosive happens. The internet starts connecting dots that the mainstream media has been carefully stepping over for years. The trusted adult who gave her pills, the executive on the boat, the yacht parties. This wasn't random abuse. This was organized. This was part of a larger network. A network run by one man, Jeffrey Epstein. Now here's where it gets interesting, and where Mel Gibson enters the story. For years, Mel Gibson has been one of the most vocal celebrities about Epstein and the trafficking rings operating inside Hollywood. While other A-listers stayed silent, Mel was breaking ranks, going on record, naming names, and building a case. But here's the thing. The police didn't care. They didn't investigate. They shelved it. So Mel did what any decent human being would do. He started making movies about it. In 2023, he released Sound of Freedom, a film that had been shelved for 5 years by Hollywood elites who didn't want it seen. The film was about child trafficking, the exact same crime that Hayden was describing in her memoir. And when Hayden's story came out and people started investigating, they found something connecting all of it. Epstein's circle wasn't just a ring of predators. It was a network of enablers. People who knew, people who covered it up, people who profited from the silence.
I was in my mid-20s the first time I really came over here. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand. And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town. Surely that couldn't be. Because... And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you are exactly on track with a lot of this stuff.
Mel wasn't being paranoid. He was seeing the truth. And the more evidence that came out about Hayden, the more people realized that Mel had been right all along. According to reports, Hayden's ex-boyfriend Steve Jones was spotted on yachts with her constantly. And there's a blind item from 2022, before the Epstein files really blew up, claiming that Steve was
in them planes. If you don't need to, don't, man. Whatever though.
Big risk right now with disclosure is
fly on Spirit, you're gonna become a Spirit.
Same operators going and providing portfolios of false information to the Congress and to the White House and to the media, to the people. We know that's already happening. And so one of the big risks, and I wrote a paper in 1999, it's up on our website, this site, seriousdisclosure.com or drstevengreer.com. You will see that I wrote in 1999 that if this goes sideways, they're going to take the disclosure of this subject and flip it into a War of the Worlds, Independence Day, the movie thing, and create global chaos and create a situation to unite the world around some non-existing threat from outer space. Because that was always the plan. You know, Carol Rosin, a member of my team who was the spokesperson for Werner von Braun, the guy who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler, and who then became part of our aerospace industry back in the 45. He warned on his deathbed that they would hoax an alien threat, and it's all a lie, and that was the plan that they had come up with in the 50s. So we're now 70 years into this sort of a long-term plan to create a hoax, basically. So I tell people, yeah, there are extraterrestrials, aliens if you want to call them. There are man-made craft. Those are the ones that are a threat. Those are the ones doing abductions, human trafficking, drug trafficking. They're being misused all over the place. If you look at what we just did at the National Press Club in Washington, you see that on my YouTube channel. We have a Marine who was on a rescue mission after the big Indonesian earthquake and tsunami in 2009. And Michael Herrera and his platoon came across one of these gigantic, about 300-foot diameter, man-made UFOs. offloading weapons, and there were crates. And we later learned, he first thought they were drugs. We later learned from other sources, those were people in there being put into slavery to be used in experimentation.
Meaning human beings?
Human. Oh, yeah, children, women, yeah. Specific ones, yeah.
You know what's crazy? This shit made it to Vlad TV, y'all. You ever catch Vlad here and there? But like that's crazy. It's being talked about everywhere. We just got to make sure. I'm just trying to make sure we all paying attention. We all on the same page. We tracking. That's it. I ain't saying everything that they saying is real. We're gonna have to see these things unfold and, you know, do our own research. But I mean, what we've been talking about has been real so far, right? All right, let's keep going.
To be used. So, I mean, these rogue operations are a serious problem. And luckily, all that information is being handed over to the authorities at the Pentagon and into Congress and the White House military office that I deal with. But, you know, whether or not there'll be a satisfactory action or outcome by the leaders in the political system is to be determined. I don't know. We're doing everything we can. I think everyone listening to this show should write to their senators and their congressmen and to the White House president and say, you need to look into this and the details of it, but also be aware of the false narrative that's going to be presented to you. Because the false narrative is where we run into problems. You know, if the establishment gets convinced that there is this kind of threat, which doesn't exist, from outer space, they could pivot the whole world into a situation where, you know, everyone would be in sort of a lockdown situation through the fear of a sort of a hoaxed threat from outer space.
The big one would be this, what Werner von Braun warned about on his deathbed. He said, he said, we are going to hoax an alien attack on the planet. It's all a lie, but it will trick and fool almost everyone. In a minute, they could stage this and it would fool. Well, it had. I mean, look at what they've been doing for decades, fooling everyone. Everyone thinks, oh, those are alien events. And, you know, our military guys chasing these objects thinks those are military, right? Well, they're not. I mean, or alien, they're military. They want to unite the world around a military junta, a totalitarian system. And how do you do that? You know, how do you get one race or one ethnicity or one nation to stop fighting with each other? You create a bigger problem up there and it unites everyone against a common enemy. But in that uniting of the world in war instead of peace, they can then exert all manner of totalitarian controls. That they were planning to stage an alien attack and to look like we're under some sort of threat, and it was all a false flag, totally a false operation. And that the purpose behind that would be to amass huge amounts of geopolitical power, sort of in a totalitarian way, through military operations. I found out that there were covert programs that were staging alien abductions and mutilations. Everyone thinks those are aliens doing that. I said, no, it's not. The CIA special projects and some other special operations people. How are they doing it? Let me give you a date. October 1954 is when we mastered what's called gravity control. If you retrieve that kind of technology and some of the brightest scientists in the world, you're going to have huge breakthroughs from the 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way to now. And then those get turned into devices that could absolutely deceive the public about something happening that looks like an alien attack on a village in Brazil. If these civilizations were hostile, we would have been shut down as a civilization in August of 1945 when we detonated the first atomic bomb. At the end of World War II, under Operation Paperclip, instead of him being hanged at Nuremberg, those guys, the geniuses, were brought over. And while he was on his deathbed in 1974, he said very directly, and I'm quoting, they are hoaxing an alien threat to try to unite the world around sort of a totalitarian and rather fascist agenda, but it will trick and fool almost everyone. Look at where we are with just what we developed in the 40s and 50s with nuclear weapons. Now imagine technologies orders of magnitude more powerful powerful at the basis of space-time being weaponized. We just did the scientific testing on something called the Booga sphere, and it's an extraterrestrial sphere about this big. That device we tested, it is 12,560 years old. People have this all backward. We're the threat. Humans, with the kind of technologies we have, we're the ones that are a threat to other worlds out there. So I would say 99.99999% of everyone in government, the public, the media, if they saw that thing, they would say it's alien, but it isn't. So see, the biggest part of the secrecy isn't the extraterrestrial part. The biggest part is what we have and what it's been used for. Back in '94, in July '94, I was asked to meet with Prince Hans Adam von Liechtenstein, the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein, who was funding all the abduction cults in the United States. Because, as he worded it to me, he'd like us to go to World War III so that Jesus Christ would return. And, no, I'm quoting. So, yeah, I kid you not. So, we have this many-hour meeting, and, he was trying to convince me to cross over to the dark side. I hate to sound like Star Wars, but, I said, no, I understand what's going on. And, but he was really trying to convince me, and he said, the reason that I fund these abduction groups is that I want people to hate the aliens so that we can make the case for Armageddon, World War III. Now these, of course, in Liechtenstein, the banking entities, of course, funded Hitler, and now there's a lot of money going into these programs. And I said, well, I don't really share that paradigm, worldview, but so we had, we agreed to disagree and what have you, but what happened that night is that I was at the St. Moritz Hotel on Central Park South, and my daughter was with one of my daughters. And I went to sleep, and there was an electromagnetic weapon system that targeted me. That said, oh yeah, you don't want to go into that area, we're going to hit you with one. So they attempted to abduct me. Now, the way a lot of these abductions are done is through what I call an astral body extraction, where they target you and then try to pull out your body, and then you'll have an experience thinking it was in your physical body, and you actually will have physical stigmata when you get back in it, because the astral body and the body of light actually manifest this one. So I knew this was happening. It was actually really terrifying. And I was like, oh. So what I did, I went in and I meditated, and I went into deep meditation and called on the power of God, as I understand this supreme great being. And I transcended into sort of this beautiful cosmic consciousness state, and it stopped because the drop of my individuality became the ocean. And they can't grab the ocean. They can only grab the drop. Got it? So I think what people have to understand is, yes, these systems are frightening and they are effective, but only if you don't understand the God-given gifts you have folded within you. And I love the quote that says, thinkest thyself a puny form when within thee the universe is folded? It's a rhetorical question. In other words, you're not just a little thing. You have the entirety of the cosmos and creation folded as a quantum conscious hologram in every single person. So as you go into higher states of consciousness and meditative practice, you begin to realize that that can be used in very practical ways, and that's how I kind of cut off that abduction attempt. Does that make sense? What happens is that the whole world is left with this false idea that all the horrible things that have been done under the name of aliens, abductions, mutilations, blowing up villages, weird creatures tearing off faces in South America, those are all human operations.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people in special forces who know those are all their operations. Beginning in the 90s, I had special forces and contractors describe what they were doing with this. So it can't be kept secret any longer that this has been going on. It's like other scandals that have come out in the past, right? That just at a certain point, the public will understand it and deal with it. But more than that, the people in government who are supposed to represent us, we the people, need to get those under control and stop it. And also, I have said to people, if they ever go in to these black sites, the first thing they need to get and show to the public are the man-made aliens, the programmed life forms, the robotic gray aliens, the man-made craft that they're putting these creatures on and abducting people and staging bizarre events just to affect people's consciousness and make them afraid. Right. And this is the old game. You create a boogeyman. Any demagogue knows this. You just create a specter of fear, and everyone that wants to be protected, and they lose all reason. Their intellect and their spiritual faculties go out the window because they're in a fight or flight fear mode, and that part of the brain shuts off higher thinking. And so through fear and manipulation, the CIA psychological warfare operations, working with these various compartmented military and intelligence groups and corporations, have set this up and have been pulling this stunt for 60 years. That has to be stood down, but it has to be exposed. You cannot cover that up. That shows that when Nikola Tesla died, that this information that he had, which allowed for a car to run out of the ambient energy, was in documents confiscated by the FBI. And I have a Department of Defense document demanding that the FBI turn these over to the DoD. The FBI refused. At any rate, science continues because the laws of the universe are in fact universal, and they can be discovered here or around Alpha Centauri or any place else in the cosmos. By 1928 and 29, T. Townsend Brown, as well as the Kolosky-Frost experiment in physics in Germany, had determined that VHV, very high voltage systems, done in a certain resonant field could result in so-called electromagnetic-gravitic effect, the lifter effect that has been described, which you see in UFOs. They also can create what's called a space-time bubble around an object so that you can correct for 1G. This is how these objects are traveling at multiples of what any aerodynamic physics would describe, and can make right-hand turns without killing the occupants. Around this same time, there was, in the 1940s and the late 1930s, a number of UFO sightings. This included the so-called Foo Fighters. Yes, it's a famous rock group. However, the Foo Fighters took their name from the reports of these objects seen in the theater of World War II that were flying around our aircraft. We thought it was a secret weapon of the Nazis. The Nazis thought it was a secret weapon of ours. There was Jimmy Doolittle, the famous general. His nephew is a dear friend of mine, and he has testified that General Doolittle was sent by FDR over to the European theater in World War II, investigated the Foo Fighters, and came back and told Roosevelt, and I quote, "They are interplanetary vehicles." So by then, there began a classified program, and which was augmented further by events, as mentioned, in 1941, and then, of course, the famous Roswell event. Those events led to, as Philip Corso describes, a reverse engineering program. As you all know from the famous Wilbur Smith document of 1951 from Canada, it talks about that flying saucers exist, but there's a high-level team headed up by Dr. Vannevar Bush that is studying the, quote, modus operandi of these vehicles. These were the most brilliant scientists, Edward Teller, Oppenheimer, and others, Hermann Oberth, amongst others, who were in this team studying how extraterrestrial vehicles move. In October of 1954, a key date I want the committee to remember, we have actionable intelligence from someone who has worked in the National Security Agency and it's been in the vault. All of this went deep black because they figured out, at that point, gravity control. So since 1954, October of that year, we have not needed rockets, jets, internal combustion engines, and surface roadways between cities. I say this with authority that this is the case. Eventually, these breakthroughs in human discovery were complemented by the study of the extraterrestrial material that were retrieved from these events. And contrary to most people's thoughts, the Roswell event was actually a downing of an extraterrestrial vehicle by an electromagnetic system that was hidden in a radar dome that was switched on, and this is in an FBI document that I can provide for the committee and is on the flash drive given to the Congress. The result ultimately was that there were trans-dimensional physics that began to be studied that deal with the nexus between electromagnetism, energy generation, anti-gravity, and consciousness. And we have discovered that there is a nexus and that, in fact, there are electromagnetic systems that have been developed that can interface directly with what we call coherent thought, the same way that you can interface with a system with lasers, which is coherent light, where you sync up all the wavelengths. Ultimately, these breakthroughs were paralleled with amazing developments in the biological sciences and the experimentation with cloning. And this began many years earlier than was reported from Dolly the sheep in Scotland. This goes a little beyond, I think, what this committee wants to look into. However, you need to understand that the technologies that we have, and we were discussing, are not theoretical. We have actionable intelligence that any committee in Congress or executive action can find regarding current operations. And I just want to go through a list of them very quickly of these facilities and corporations for which we have witnesses who can be subpoenaed by the committees of the Congress. This was developed at the request of Congressman Christopher Cox of Orange County, with whom I met, and was later further developed for the briefing that we put together for President Obama. These facilities are the Edwards Air Force Base and subsections where at the dry lake bed where the Lockheed Skunk Works operations, Haystack Butte, China Lakes, George Air Force Base, and the closed Norton Air Force Base, where an anti-gravity device, so-called alien reproduction vehicle, for which we have the schematics, was seen by Frank Carlucci and others on our witness team. Tabletop Mountain and Blackjack Control. The aerospace facilities there are the Northrop Anthill Facility, Tejon Ranch, the McDonnell Douglas Llano Plant, Lockheed Martin Hellendale Plant, and the Phillips Lab. At the Nellis Air Force Facility, so-called Area 51, no one calls it that. There's S4 and S12, Pahut Mesa, Groom Lake, and a number of sub-facilities. The most important facility is in Utah, near Provo, the Dugway Proving Grounds, all of which is underground, and the airspace above it is classified. There are no roads into this facility. The New Mexico facilities include Los Alamos National Labs with underground connectors to the so-called Dulce area where the biological work is being done, and Kirtland Air Force Base. And the complex there includes Sandia National Laboratories, Phillips Labs, Manzano Mountain Weapons Storage Facility, Coyote Canyon, and the White Sands Complex. In Arizona, near Fort Huachuca, which is Army Intelligence Headquarters, there is a UGB underground base where one of our witnesses, who will testify, worked on 9 separate extraterrestrial vehicles that had been down through advanced electromagnetic pulse weapons, and there are several different species of extraterrestrial biologicals stored at that facility. The other facilities, and this goes on, include a special compartmented area of Cheyenne Mountain, where we have witnesses in our team who can be subpoenaed, where we have tracked extraterrestrial vehicles in our solar system that were measuring 26 miles in diameter. There are also facilities in Australia, a key one being Pine Gap, the so-called Alice Springs facility, which is mostly a U.S. Air Force facility, even though it is in Australia. I recently talked to the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia about this. Also, the Redstone Arsenal and the Marshall Space Flight Center. We have a scientist at the Redstone Arsenal who works under contract for IT&T who have developed these transdimensional systems. He was under contract with my project to bring these energy devices out, and he was then threatened by a former CIA director and what I call the goon squad that went down there 3 years ago in March. This is just part of the information we have, and this information is on the flash drive given, then that you're all welcome to review. Thank you. Well, I actually have a picture on my cell phone of 2 actual ETs that were present at a CE5 contact event, if you're at Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, You can see the film on Amazon Prime or Tubi. And so it's not on a Ring camera, it's on my iPhone. So if you could have them contact me, they can send us $1 million tomorrow.
Okay, do you have these pictures right now?
Yeah.
Can you show them on the camera?
Oh, I'd have to fish them out, but yeah, they're pretty amazing, actually. So this is one. And, you know, he, very triangular shaped head, almost like a beak-like face. It was at an event we did out in the Arizona desert a couple years ago. There were about 30 witnesses to this. This photograph was taken with a really good Nikon camera by David Marconi, who wrote the screenplay for Enemy of the State. And it was during a reconnaissance and contact event we were doing there in the desert up above Tucson, up at about 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And it was a very unusual series of events happened. We have another one. I don't know if I have that one on my phone. That happened at Joshua Tree National Park about, 15 years ago. And quite spectacular, everyone saw. And as a person took a picture of it, now this was under low light conditions, but it's very clear what it is. And it's an extraterrestrial being that's sort of levitating, floating out in the desert just outside our circle. So, yeah, we have a lot of unusual material.
They're going to fake an alien invasion, and it is going to lead to the end of Revelation. Now, all these old coins are showing us that Jesus already came back and had his 1,000-year reign, and he was in New Jerusalem in the clouds, as you can see him ruling with an iron rod, and people were making pilgrimage to him. And on all these old maps, you can see New Jerusalem is now a spinning disc, and when you go to Zechariah 14, it is said that New Jerusalem is lifted up and turned into a plane, and this is exactly what it is describing. And all those coins are dated in the times of Jesus, including the Geneva Bible, which you can see says 599 years in the times of Jesus, which is Jesus in Latin and Greek, because the letter J did not exist yet. But when it did exist, we start seeing the coins also being made in the time of Jesus with the J, and they're telling us historically that is a 1, but clearly that is not a 1. So if New Jerusalem was once here and ruling 1,000 years, where did it go? Well, as you can see on these old maps, it's called O and T maps. It was once Africa, Europe, and Asia. Those were the 3 continents, and we were once on one landmass. And when Jesus came, Pangea happens. That is what Revelation says. Islands will flee. If in the Greek it doesn't say islands, it says coastal regions. So if every part of a coast was pulled apart and fled away, it would create the continents we have today. And originally, Jerusalem was in the center of the earth. And we all know on a biblical plane, the center of the earth is the North Pole. So if the North Pole is where New Jerusalem is, it is slowly moving from, the center of the earth to Russia. And I believe that is why we get our northern lights. They match up perfectly with God's throne room and Revelation. So if that is the North Pole, right? New Jerusalem is the North Pole, and it is slowly moving to Russia. That means we're about to enter Revelation 27 through 10. Not only does Magog and Gog represent Russia and someone else in Russia in Ezekiel, but when you look at the old medieval maps, you can see that Magog is right here in Siberia, where New Jerusalem is headed. It says that the 4 corners of the earth and all nations will gather to surround New Jerusalem. And when you look at these maps, the old maps obviously show like 4 corners of the earth, and this is Asia, Russia, and Greenland, which we know Trump wanted. So obviously that is going to be where we're headed, all these nations surrounding New Jerusalem. We see these old maps showing right next to Asia and Russia, Tierra de Isu, which stands for Land of Jesus. So obviously Jesus came back, and we're not expecting a second coming, which is why he hasn't come back for 2,000 years. And it feels like the devil has taken over for so long. No, we're just in the devil's time of deception, and we're about to end it, in my opinion. And I suggest to watch my other videos so you'll understand how everything is going to, come in place. But we are headed to a one-world government, and I honestly don't even want to say the word, because every time I try to talk about this thing right here, that right there, that word, they take my videos down, or just, you know, let nobody see them. So please realize that aliens are not real. If you believe in the Bible, you cannot assume aliens are real. We live in a firmament. So if they're telling us aliens are real, it has to be for a reason, and it's not to do with the second coming. It doesn't even make sense. So obviously it has to be something else in scripture. That is what this is. And obviously they're trying to make us think that we are waiting for the mark of the beast, but we're not. And when the aliens come, which we know they're trying to set up, they're going to deceive most people and most Christians. So do not be deceived.
Okay, I think I just had a revelation and I'm kind of freaked out. I'm on my lunch break right now. I just got to my car. What if the spirit of deception thing with this rapture is to make all these Christians focused on the fact that they're getting raptured, right? It's not only going to like break their faith and do all this stuff, but here's the biggest one, is that they're not going to be prepared. They're not going to be prepared whenever the Antichrist does all these things, and now we can't buy or sell, and it's like crypto coin or like some kind of implant or something. Like, they're not going to be prepared. They're not going to have no food. They're not going to know where to go. They're going to succumb. They're going to take the mark. They're already going to be defeated. Like, what if the enemy's great plan and all of this spirit of deception with the false rapture is really at the same time that we're entering into the tribulation? Like, what if they're just not going to be prepared? Prepare, please. I'm seeing it in my spirit so hard to prepare. Prepare. Like, build the ark that way. Noah wasn't pulled off of the earth. He had to go through the flood, but he had the means to do it. Where's your ark? Where's your community? Where's your group of people that believe just like you do, just like I do? We got to unite. We got to come together. They're trying to take TikTok and take social media and take free speech, right? I've been shadow banned. I don't even know if anybody will see this. I'm just talking to myself in my car saying, prepare. I don't care. I don't care. The world could label me however they want. That ship already done sailed. I've been labeled crazy, you know, whatever, for so long because I'm a believer in the word of God. So it looks crazy to the secular world, right? But I'm saying to prepare. Watch my last videos. The rapture ain't happening on September 23rd. Too many people know about it. It says like a thief in the night that no one knows. Prepare for the tribulation because we're here. We are here, my friends. Welcome to the end. God bless. You ready? Be prepared. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Saying is the Scofield Bible, its theology is deceptive.
A very wealthy, very charismatic preacher named John Darby came with this doctrine that's now referred to as the secret rapture or the pre-tribulation rapture. And guess who he was connected to, by the way? The Rothschilds.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard of a Scofield Bible?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so C.I. Scofield was basically a student of John Darby, and he adopted that part of the doctrine, and he incorporated that into the Bible. It was the first Bible ever made that had study notes with it. It became so popular, every Christian was reading it, every minister was reading it, including me, including my own father. For a long time, that's what we believe too. But when you start actually going back and reading line by line by line what is said that will be leading up to Jesus coming back, which is when the rapture happens, it's the inverse of what John Darby put down.
My sense was the Scofield stuff, which has had massive implications for our foreign policy, for example, and in our domestic politics, was probably a lie.
Watch this.
Light it up now.
That's crazy, man. Man, that's crazy. It's like a trump.
Thousands of people heard the same terrifying sound, and nobody could figure out what was causing it. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't construction, and it sounded like something massive was happening above the clouds. Recently, people across the United States started reporting strange trumpet-like noises coming from the sky, and several witnesses caught the moment on camera. A deep metallic sound echoed through entire neighborhoods. It was loud, heavy, and unlike anything people had heard before. Many said it sounded like giant horns coming from somewhere above the clouds. The strangest part was what happened next. The sky suddenly turned dark, almost like a storm appeared out of nowhere. Some people even reported seeing flashes of lightning. Even though the forecast showed clear skies, the sound continued for a long time, leaving residents completely confused. Similar trumpet-like sounds have been reported around the world for years, and some people connect them to ancient predictions. In the Bible, trumpet sounds are described as warnings before major events. So what exactly are people hearing coming from the sky?
Paul begins by urging the Thessalonians not to be quickly shaken or alarmed by rumors, false teachings, or forged letters claiming that the day of the Lord has already arrived. He makes it clear certain events must happen first. Chief among them is the rebellion or apostasy and the revealing of the man of lawlessness, a figure who opposes God and exalts himself above all that is worshipped.
It wasn't me saying it might happen. No, I was like fully convinced and repeatedly said in all of my videos that a rapture would happen.
And what's even more sad is that there are going to be a lot of Christians that are going to give you the pass. No, you should be held accountable for you sold your car, sir. You sold your car.
Guys, I'm saying goodbye to my car. I've had it for 5 years. They're taking it. No, this is my baby, man. This has been my baby for years. 5 years. But she's gonna go. I won't need her beyond September because I'm going home.
That's you, sir. And I'm pretty sure you're not the only one who's done that. People have quit their jobs. People have emptied out their savings. All because of people like you. You're sick. You need to be locked up.
Sometime on September 23rd or the 24th or across both dates because of time zones, and maybe even cross into the 25th. At time of recording this, it's 9:45 a.m. the 25th of September. The rapture hasn't happened. So I've been talking about the rapture happening in September, going all the way back to June. June 21st was my everything, the maths, it looked like it was all pointing to the rapture happening finally. And it did not.
Do you want to know why it didn't happen, brother man? It's because you need psychological evaluation. A lot of Christians need a psychological evaluation, but you specifically, you might need some help.
Christians, since the very beginning of their cult, have always tried to predict the end times or Jesus Christ coming back. And this is not going to be the end. But I just want people to reassess and reevaluate what they see and how they see the world in terms of their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I could never take somebody seriously the moment something bad happens in the world, the moment something prophetic supposedly happens. Oh, Jesus is coming by you. What's it going to take for you to understand Jesus is a myth? If you honestly believe something like this is going to happen, you need help. There's no other way to put it. If you think something like this is going to happen in your lifetime or in the next, you need help. This is not sane. This is not okay to believe in, for you to think this is actually happening. And I actually made a YouTube video discussing the end times and Jesus Christ's supposed second coming and how ridiculous it is to believe in it. It's on YouTube right now, so if you want that YouTube video, go ahead and comment unsaved, and I'll send that video your way.
Jesus told me right before I was entering back into my house, he said, right before I come, months before, a time frame right before, he said, they will talk about aliens a lot, Brandon. They will talk about aliens a lot. And he said, there will be a great deception. There is a deception coming, and it will appear on TV, and it will deceive the nations. Do you understand? And I've told you, I believe there's no such things as aliens. This is fallen angel, demonic stuff to try to explain away the rapture of the church.
Watch this.
What is up now? That's crazy, man.
Recently, something terrifying happened in the United States. People reported hearing trumpet-like sounds coming directly from the sky. Multiple people actually caught this exact moment on camera. A huge metallic noise rings out over the whole town. It is super deep, really heavy, and just totally unnatural. It definitely doesn't sound like jets flying by, and it is not building work. A lot of folks said it literally sounded like giant horns playing right out of the clouds. The weirdest part about all this is how the weather changed. Right when it happened, the sky just went pitch black, like a massive storm was popping up out of thin air. A few guys even saw a quick flash of lightning, even though the weather forecast was totally clear. The noise kept going for a good while, leaving everybody totally freaked out and confused.
What is up now? That's crazy, man. Man, that's crazy. It's like a trumpet. It's like a judgment trumpet. This y'all get right. And this has been happening all day. If I ain't right with the Most High, I suggest y'all get right with the Most High, because that's a trumpet. I don't care what nobody says. That's a trumpet. I ain't out here trying to crank nobody. That's loud. Bub, that's loud. Y'all ain't right with God. Y'all need to get right. This always happens when something bad. When something bad is
Oh, geez. Wind is definitely picking up. This is definitely 60-mile-per-hour winds. Maybe even 70. I really hope that's not a tornado. I don't think it is.
That's a trumpet. I don't care what nobody says. That's definitely a trumpet. What is up now? That's crazy, man. Man, that's crazy. It's like a trumpet. It's like a judgment trumpet.
Can you hear that noise?
What is that? Sound. What?
It's coming from the sky.
Are you sure, Dad?
Yeah.
Sounds like a trumpet, Dad. What is that?
Kenapa sampai gitu?
No mames. No mames. Ya que estoy quemado.
These trumpet sounds are being heard all over the world, and it's actually been going on for quite some time. So loud, undeniable. You watch videos of people on YouTube just staring up at the sky. Nobody knows what it is, and scientists can't explain it.
The book of Revelation says the end of the world will be announced with the sound of 7 trumpets. Each blowing of the trumpet brings a new apocalyptic event. After the 7th trumpet, Armageddon. For centuries, people have reported low-frequency hums, the crack of thunder on a clear day, and the sound of cannon fire in the middle of nowhere. Mysterious sounds have been heard at the bottom of the ocean and in outer space, and they've been heard long before modern machines and industry. Recently, people have been recording and sharing videos of these loud, unnatural sounds, and some of them, they sound a lot like trumpets. The book of Revelation chapter 8 describes the opening of the 7th seal, which contains 7 trumpets to be sounded by angels.
And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them.
7 trumpets. If these angels want to form a decent jazz band, they're also going to need a trombone, a banjo, and a pretty good drummer.
The sounding of the trumpets in Revelation signals the apocalypse, not the formation of a jazz band.
Are you sure the Bible's not talking about a jazz band?
No, I'm sure. It's about the end of the world.
So, it's about Judgment Day?
Yep.
Okay, hear me out.
Oh, here we go.
What's the city most famous for jazz?
New Orleans.
What's the most famous New Orleans jazz song?
How am I supposed to know that? It could be anything.
Okay, what's the one song in the whole world that when you're at Preservation Hall in New Orleans, you have to tip extra for them to play?
When the Saints Go Marching In.
Right. And what's that song about?
Well, that song's about Judgment Day.
Bingo.
You just blew my mind.
Yeah?
Okay, assuming the angels aren't forming a jazz band on Judgment Day.
But they could be.
But let's assume they're not.
Yeah.
When each of these trumpets blow, calamities unfold. First, hail, fire, and blood rain onto the earth. Seas turn to blood. Then darkness, then locusts. Then a huge army of darkness appears. And finally, the Ark of the Covenant is revealed. Though some Christians take these doomsday predictions literally, many don't. And non-believers don't believe any of this. But whether you're a believer or not, you have to admit that it would be terrifying to hear the sound of trumpets blowing, especially when the sound seems to be coming from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Just before midnight on March 17th, 2020, the people of Houston woke up to eerie sounds that seemed to be coming from the sky. Even creepier, it sounded like music.
There's no machinery nearby or construction, so I have no idea where it's coming from. Weird.
A few months later, the same sounds were heard in Argentina. This sound was heard all over the world. Denmark, Singapore, New Zealand, Ireland, California, really everywhere. In San Antonio, the sounds were less musical.
Oh, this is scary.
And sometimes, like in the Czech Republic, it feels like a presence. A dark, angry presence. Sometimes it sounds like the roar of an animal.
Yeah, any mention of dragons in the Bible?
Yep. In Revelation, the dragon represents Satan.
Okay, this is terrifying. Yeah, this isn't funny anymore. It's definitely something alive.
These sounds are generally known as sky trumpets, and there are a lot of theories about what they actually are. Some scientists say it's a weather event, but sky trumpets can be heard in all kinds of weather, even on clear days. Some say the sounds are geological in nature, that they come from the movement of the earth.
Just have a listen to this. So what are you hearing? Well, we don't really know.
Now, that could be the earth moving, but what about when the sounds just go on and on? Some scientists think the sound has something to do with the Earth's magnetic field. And most people don't know this, but the aurora borealis and australis, they make sound. But the truth is, nobody really knows what causes sky trumpets. They can sound like music, like machinery, or even like the roar of a dragon. But those aren't the only unexplained sounds that come from the sky. Sometimes on a perfectly sunny day, without a cloud in sight, the sky sounds like it's tearing itself apart.
Oh my God!
What is that?
Oh my God!
A biblical swarm of locusts floods the skies over Russia. What? Millions of locusts have descended on southern Russia, swallowing roads, darkening the skies, and tearing through valuable farmland. The enormous, vast moving swarm has engulfed the Kizlar district in the Republic of Dagestan, where the insects have dramatically reduced visibility and created dangerous conditions for motorists. Footage from the region shows locusts filling the air and surrounding vehicles as drivers attempt to navigate through the biblical invasion. Here's some of the images of this. This is footage from the region showing locusts filling the air and surrounding vehicles as drivers attempt to navigate through the biblical. They're calling this a biblical invasion. That's an image. There's another image. I don't see any footage, and I'm very weary about using any kind of footage from places like Russia, whatnot, because they'll hit you with copyright strikes. So I'm just trying to give you some footage of it. Stunned watchers watched as the insects flooded the skies, with some comparing the eerie transformation to the 10 plagues God inflicted on the Egyptians in the biblical narrative of Exodus. Quote, looks like one of the 10 plagues, one ex-user wrote. Quote, it's all gone biblical, man, another declared, while one person simply warned biblical. Another invoked Moses' warning to the Egyptian Pharaoh before the plagues descended, writing, quote, let my people go. Wow, the ravenous insects sweeping across agricultural land, threatening crops as authorities race to contain the escalating emergency. Let me know your thoughts on this, guys.
Да, похоже, травки на нашем стадионе пришел конец.
Even after the plague of hail shattered Egypt's fields and orchards, Pharaoh's heart remained stubborn. But God sent Moses with a new warning. Let my people go, or a far greater swarm will devour everything left. Suddenly, a great east wind blew across Egypt, bringing thick swarms of locusts. They blanketed the land, devouring every leaf, fruit, and blade of grass. Not a green thing remained. The fields lay barren, Egypt struck with hunger and despair. Again, Pharaoh begged for mercy. Moses prayed, and the locusts vanished with the wind. Yet still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Egypt's ordeal was not over.
5. The locusts of the apocalypse. The sky darkened as though the light itself had been torn away. A thick smoke rose from the opened abyss, covering the sun and plunging the earth into twilight. But the terror was not in the smoke. It was in what emerged from it. Creatures that had never walked among men, the dreadful locusts of the apocalypse. They advanced like a living army, but they did not resemble ordinary insects. Their bodies were like horses prepared for battle, strong, raised, covered with plates of chitin that gleamed like iron armor beneath the dim light. The appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. Revelation 9:7. On their heads was something like crowns of gold, not metallic but organic, pulsating, as though they were marks of a cruel authority granted for judgment. Their faces bore human features, large, intelligent eyes observing with cold precision. Their expressions showed no rage, only intent. This strange hint of humanity made them even more disturbing, like a dark parody of the Creator's design. Beneath their faces, however, lay a beastly jaw with sharp teeth that hummed like a restrained predator. They had hair like women's hair, Revelation 9:8. Long, dark strands rippled atop their heads, giving them a spectral, almost warrior-like appearance. Their teeth, like lions' teeth, were curved, cutting weapons. Their chests were protected by breastplates like iron, and the clash of their ranks echoed like metal in war. Their wings beat with a force that shook the air. The sound was like the thunder of chariots rushing into battle. But it was the tail that sealed their purpose. Long, jointed, ending in a scorpion's stinger, it gleamed like venomous glass. They had tails like scorpions, with stings, Revelation 9:10. They plunged from the sky like living arrows, striking their victims with pain so intense that men longed for death. But it would not come. These were not locusts of this world. They were creatures of the abyss, messengers of torment, formed to remind humanity that under divine judgment, even the smallest being can become more terrifying than entire armies.
And finally, residents of Israel's south may have found themselves swatting insects over the weekend as a plague of locusts swarmed the area. The cloud of yellow insects flew into the areas surrounding Eilat and the Arava, with some even coming from the sea. The yellow color is an indication of their age, as these bugs are mature and skilled flyers. Throughout history, locusts have been symbolic of major devastation. As depicted in legends and ancient texts all over the world, plagues of locusts were said to cause famines, human migrations, and untold destructions, the most famous example being the biblical plague of locusts in the Exodus. Regardless of their legendary reputations and the sheer size and numbers of the current swarm, the locusts pose no danger to humans or animals whatsoever.
There is a biblical-sized plague of locusts hitting Saudi Arabia right now. Check this out. Plagues like this and an increase in natural disasters is a sign that we are living in the end times. If you want to learn more, make sure you follow or subscribe now.
Do you know why God created locusts? For many people, the moment locusts are mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind is disaster. Once they appear, fields are swept bare, crops are devoured, and the land quickly turns desolate. To human eyes, locusts almost seem like a symbol of destruction and ruin. But the Bible reveals another side. God did not create locusts only to make people see judgment, but also to use them to give humanity a profound reminder. Proverbs 30:27 says it very clearly, "Locusts have no king, yet they advance in ranks." At first glance, that sentence seems simple, but the deeper you think about it, the more striking it becomes. Because locusts have no king standing in front of them giving orders, and yet they still move in the same direction. They work together, act in order, and when gathered, they even resemble an army that cannot be ignored. They do not depend on someone constantly watching them, nor on someone endlessly issuing commands. Each one simply holds its place, does the part it is meant to do, and together they become an astonishing force. That is exactly what God wants people to see. A truly powerful group is not powerful because it has some dazzling leader, but because every person within it is willing to be united, to cooperate, and to support one another. A person walking alone may move a little faster, But only a group that is truly united can go farther and accomplish what one person could never do alone. What is most tragic today is not that people lack ability, but that so many have already lost the heart of unity, cooperation, and mutual encouragement. Even locusts know how to move in the same direction, yet people are becoming more and more used to living only for themselves. So what is truly astonishing about locusts may never have been only the destruction they bring, but the fact that even this creature understands the power of unity, while human beings so often lose what matters most. If you also believe this is the reminder God gives people through locusts, then type "There is strength in unity" in the comments and share this video so that more people can see sometimes God uses the most insignificant creatures to teach the weightiest lessons.
Банка.
Yesterday, the Sea of Galilee in Israel suddenly turned blood red. Even CNN reported it. The entire lake looked as if it had been covered in blood, instantly reminding people of the plagues of Pharaoh from the Bible. In 2025, the Middle East is already on edge, but this event feels like pouring gasoline on the fire. Scientists say it could be an algae bloom or some kind of chemical reaction in the water. But believers see it differently. This isn't coincidence. It's a sign. Many are saying it may not literally be blood, but it represents what's coming. In the Bible, Jesus said that before the end times, the earth would be marked with signs and wonders. And the Sea of Galilee, the very place where Jesus once walked, now shines crimson. Could this be the signal of the final hour? Even stranger, someone asked an AI Bible app called Heaven to interpret the event. Its response was chilling. This sounds like an unusual, extraordinary event. The cause is uncertain, but it is truly astonishing. In other words, even artificial intelligence couldn't explain it.
Yesterday, the Sea of Galilee in Israel suddenly turned blood red. Even CNN reported it. The entire lake looked as if it had been covered in blood, instantly reminding people of the plagues of Pharaoh from the Bible in 2025. The Middle East is already on edge, but this event feels like pouring gasoline on the fire. Scientists say it could be an algae bloom or some kind of chemical reaction in the water, but believers see it differently. This isn't coincidence, it's a sign. Many are saying it may not literally be blood, but it represents what's coming. In the Bible, Jesus said that before the end times, the earth would be marked with signs and wonders. And the Sea of Galilee, the very place where Jesus once walked, now shines crimson. Could this be the signal of the final hour? Even stranger, someone asked an AI Bible app called Heaven to interpret the event. Its response was chilling. This sounds like an unusual, extraordinary event. The cause is uncertain, but it is truly astonishing. In other words, even artificial intelligence couldn't explain it.
Yesterday, the Sea of Galilee in Israel suddenly turned blood red. Even CNN reported it. The entire lake looked as if it had been covered in blood, instantly reminding people of the plagues of Pharaoh from the Bible. In 2025, the Middle East is already on edge, but this event feels like pouring gasoline on the fire. Scientists say it could be an algae bloom or some kind of chemical reaction in the water. But believers see it differently. This isn't coincidence. It's a sign. Many are saying it may not literally be blood, but it represents what's coming. In the Bible, Jesus said that before the end times, the earth would be marked with signs and wonders. And the Sea of Galilee, the very place where Jesus once walked, now shines crimson. Could this be the signal of the final hour? Even stranger, someone asked an AI Bible app called Heaven to interpret the event. Its response was chilling. This sounds like an unusual, extraordinary event. The cause is uncertain, but it is truly astonishing. In other words, even artificial intelligence couldn't explain it.
What are the demonic locusts of Revelation? These locusts appear when the fifth trumpet is blown for the purpose of attacking and torturing the unsaved for 5 months. The plague begins with a star falling from heaven. This star is most likely a fallen angel, as it is given the key to the bottomless pit and opens the abyss, releasing a horde of locusts. During this time, the people who will be tormented wish to die. However, they will not be able to do so. But the most unusual thing is how John describes them. They look like horses prepared for war. They wear something like golden crowns, and their faces were like human faces. They have hair like that of women and teeth like that of lions. They have something like iron breastplates, and their wings sound like the roar of many chariots of horses rushing into battle. We must bear in mind that John tried to describe what he saw in the words of his time. He did not understand, let alone know the name of what they really were. From his description, they could have been helicopters, but they could also be literal. Comment and follow me for part 2.
Important message to humanity. Mass awakening through the photon light belt. DNA recommendations. We are the Galactic Federation of Light. A massive spiritual shift is anticipated as the photon belt approaches. Its imminent arrival on Earth has sparked much intrigue and speculation. This will have a significant impact on human consciousness and life on Earth, and the hopeful vision it generates for humanity's future. We must keep an open mind to have a more conscious, fair, and sustainable society. The photon belt is a band of photon energy and high-frequency antimatter particles through which our solar system passes in a regular cycle. It is composed of photons, gamma rays, and high-frequency antimatter particles, vibrating at a level that activates DNA, leading to cellular transformation. The photon belt orbits around the center of the Milky Way. Our solar system passes through this belt in a 26,000-year cycle. Half of this cycle, equivalent to 13,000 years, occurs within the photon belt. The other half occurs outside of it. Currently, we are approaching one of the 13,000-year periods when our solar system will be inside the photon belt. This means a significant change on Earth and within humanity. It is expected to reach Earth very soon as the Earth passes through this band of intense photonic light. There will be profound effects on the planet when it arrives on Earth, because it will trigger a mass awakening and a spiritual transformation. The intense light of the photon belt will activate the pineal gland and DNA, expanding consciousness and granting psychic abilities. The energy will cause all living beings on Earth to evolve to a higher state. Additionally, there may be several days of darkness and extreme cold. As the energy overwhelms our sun and causes it to dim temporarily, it is possible that electrical grids will go down, but after this period of transition, it normalizes. This will mark the beginning of a new golden age of peace, love, and harmony on Earth. She will thrive in the light and live in complete unity with nature and the cosmos. This will be an auspicious event that we must embrace without fear, because it represents a unique individual and collective opportunity, accelerated with open hearts, enlightened minds, and positive intentions, as we align with the divine cosmic energies flooding the planet. 3 days of darkness will occur when the Earth passes through the photon belt. This is as the Earth enters and passes through this belt. There will be no sunlight, nor moonlight on the Earth's surface. Photons are electromagnetic particles that travel at the speed of light and will act as a barrier or temporary shield around the Earth, preventing the light of the sun or the stars from passing through it. This is expected to last 72 hours or 5 days. There are no breaks or periods of light. During the 3 days, only darkness. Recommendations: stock up on food, water, candles, other essential items. All sunlight will be blocked and solar panels will not generate energy. Stay at home and avoid traveling for safety reasons. The sunlight will return to the earth, marking the beginning of the golden age. We will delve deeper into information. Be calm. We are the Galactic Federation of Light. Good start to February for everyone. And for our siblings, who will be celebrating their birthdays, happy return to the sun. Light, peace, unity, and love for all. I am Maria Lustig, guardian of the flame of light in loving divine service to humanity on Gaia. Voiced by We Are Positive Worldwide. Always remember, you are the most important person in this world. We love you very much. We are with you every step of the way. We value your presence. We are your cosmic family of light. We are your source of eternal light and love. We are your beacon of light on the path. If you are new to the channel and this topic resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments, and share. Together we can learn and expand our knowledge on this spiritual journey, allowing us to achieve the life we truly deserve. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I was listening to a famous radio show host, Art Bell, people. Now I think you could consider him the godfather of all this podcasting that you see on YouTube now, where everybody talking about all these, hard things, right, paranormal. He is the godfather of it, because in the 90s, I think he had a radio show, and it was done through satellite, right? Satellite radio, and so what I've read in the comment sections, people really love this dude. Like, you'll see the truckers like, yo, man, you got me through so many nights. Yeah. Art Bell, dude, like, we missed you. I didn't know he had died, to be honest. I thought he was still around. Died. Yeah, he died in 2018 or something like that. It was really recent. Damn. So I thought he was still alive. And so I started checking out this channel that posts all this stuff in it, and it gets into some really cool stuff, man. It's like, it's broadened my knowledge, I guess you could say, of paranormal things. And one of the things that got me really interested and spooked out was he was talking about the missing 411. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. No. It's basically this phenomenon that the people are claiming it is, that in the national forest of the United States, a lot of people end up missing. And most people are going to be like, well, it's a forest. People are going to be missing, it's just natural. But the weird thing about it is there's no evidence left, of anybody missing. There's no trails, there's no DNA, and then for some reason that's being, according to the guy who was on there, is being covered up because he's an investigator, and I guess he was an ex-cop, so he knows his shit. He knows about rangers, and he knows that there seems to be some other department ahead of everybody that's just kind of covering some of this shit up, and people are literally going missing. Like, say you got a line of people walking right in the woods, the last person might end up missing. And just like that, it's been actual cases like that. And people look back and there's no sign. I'm talking about nothing. To the point where they actually bring in, people to look, people to look for the missing people, and they don't find shit. And that is weird, because I'm gonna tell you about the Japanese forest. I forgot the name of it, but it's called Suicide Forest.
Oh, I heard of that one. There was actually a movie on that too.
Yeah, and it's terrible.
It was.
Yeah, it's a super low budget movie, but somehow they fucked it up. Yeah. But yeah, I've heard of that forest. I know the stories. But people do get found, though. At the very least, you'll see, if somebody goes to the forest, to commit suicide, they'll get found, with there's bones or whatever, or letters, something. Yeah. You don't find shit in these cases, according to, to these investigators. And so it was really, it was a good show, man. I recommend it to people out there. And people just interested in horror in general, or just spooky shit, just check out Art Bell. He has really good material out there.
The world has changed only in the sense that what I did then is being done now times 10. So I'm walking back into a world that I guess almost in the modern world created, and there's more of it.
Story time.
I never thought about that.
Would you like one more good one?
Whatever you're willing to offer.
Well, the Tower of Babel was one of my greatest times. I don't know if you've read the Old Testament.
The Tower of Babel in Iraq?
Yeah.
Yes.
The Tower of Babel that was destroyed when the languages were confused. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
Well, the Tower of Babel, man was all of one language. And I had great influence among the people. And they began to build a great project. This project they called a tower. It wasn't a large, tall building. But if you read the scripture carefully, it says that anything that would be imaginable to the people they would be able to accomplish, God had to destroy it. God had to destroy it, or man would be able to do it. That tower was not a tall, senseless building.
Is there to be...
time transformer.
Yeah, I understand. Is there to be a final battle between good and you?
You know, good is kind of a... Good is whoever wins. If I win, I'll be good.
Good is whoever wins. If I win, I'll be good. Yeah, you got to think about it that way, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Now, if I win, everyone will say that I'm good.
And will worship you.
Many do, already.
You're very serious, aren't you?
Sure. Many do. Bill Clinton
worships you.
Absolutely. Where do you think he gets his power?
You know, once I had the last time I had Father Malachi Martin on, I don't know whether you happen to hear that or not.
No.
He's a priest, has consulted...
many priests are followers of me.
Well, that may be true. But what I'm getting to here is I asked Father Martin whether Bill Clinton was perfectly possessed, and you know what he said? No comment. You find that humorous?
I find his power comes from a great and powerful source.
What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the area.
Something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off. You got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
On my Area 51 line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharged.
I started getting...
Well, this was certainly interesting. We are now on a backup system, everybody. A backup system. And that one caller that I had on the air... Back now to Dr. Malachi Martin. Doctor, are you there?
Of course I am.
Good. Good.
Listening to everything. I'm fascinated.
Doctor, is there now, or is there going to be an Antichrist?
Whether there is now is a question. There is going to be an Antichrist, and I think the best thing we can do is talk about his public appearance.
All right.
Because he may already be in existence. For me to say he is in existence would immediately provoke the questions, where is he and what is he doing?
Yes.
And I want to avoid that.
Yes.
But he will be manifest publicly within a reasonable amount of time. Most people who are 20-something or 30-something will come across Antichrist in their life. I'm 76. I may not.
How will we know him?
We will know him by two main qualities. First of all, he will arrive at a time when we as a race have what looks like insuperable problems. Supposing we discover we have really insuperable environmental problems.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Supposing we find we have insuperable health problems, a disease,
yes,
wasting nation after nation. That's the first thing. He will have solutions for those problems. He will have wise solutions that are real solutions. And number two, the result of his intervention and the results of his solutions will be such that people will say, you must be God. And he will accept that attribute.
He will accept that.
Yes, he will accept that. Those are the three marks of the Antichrist.
Well, you've already done it to me. You're already giving me chills. I've been a talk show host, Doctor, for about, in this incarnation, 13 years doing this program. And in the last several years, Doctor, I've begun to observe something that I just picked a word and I began to call it the quickening. And
it's a very good word, Art. It's a very discerning word. You must speak from experience.
Well,
you must.
I speak from watching the news of what man is doing by the day, yes. Doctor. And by this quickening, I mean socially. I'm watching these horrible things happening. Yesterday, just an example, in Sacramento, a man was holed up and killed his two children in front of his wife, and then in front of his wife killed himself. This kind of senseless, mindless, unbelievable behavior socially.
And it's not isolated, my God.
I know, it's not isolated. Politically, Doctor, I look around and I see no sense to what is going on. We have lost our way.
We have lost our way. There's no doubt about that. Could I stick in something at this moment, Arch? Could I make a remark?
You may indeed.
There is, in Scripture and in tradition, and by the way, I'm a Roman Catholic, so I'm not sort of dependent on the Bible as Protestants are, and that's their choice. But there is a thing called the mystery of iniquity, and it's a very constant teaching of the Bible and of religious men and women, and it's this, that evil is allowed from time to time to so dull the senses of men and women and to so disturb the equilibrium of their minds that they do real crazy, mad, bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the point that gives me a chill. I'm 76, and I noticed that in the last 20, 25 years of my life, the incidents of such disequilibrium, the incidents of that seem to be much more frequent than when I was younger.
Yes.
Much more, there are much more shocking things happen, and it's not that we're getting to know them. No. The world was connected at that time. Communications were slow when I was young, say when I was 25, or when I was 20. But everything, all the news got around. But we never heard such a plethora of shocking, unbelievably violent, unnatural happenings to ordinary people.
Imagine hearing about a billionaire warn about the coming of the Antichrist, while at the same time funding the very tools that the beast system will use to control the world. Well, what if I told you there actually is a billionaire going around warning people about the Antichrist? Sounds kind of strange, right? Well, here's what kind of makes this concerning. The very same man giving these warnings is also building the exact tools that will empower the Antichrist and the beast system. I'm talking about Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, early investor in Facebook, a billionaire who now runs a company called Palantir. You might have heard about it. This is a data mining and surveillance company that works directly with the CIA, the Department of Defense, and other global intelligence agencies. What he just said in a recent interview is deeply disturbing. So today we're going to react to some of his statements. And I'm not going to lie, the last part of the interview is the most revealing. So make sure you catch it at the end because it gets wild. So while we listen to what this Peter Thiel guy has to say, don't just hear a billionaire speaking. Hear how the spirit of the Antichrist is already at work in the world. It's pointing us toward the very system the book of Revelation talks about, a one world government, a one world religion, a one world economy.
There's also a very macroscopic question that you're interested in that, will pull on the religion thread a little bit here. You have been giving talks recently about the concept of the Antichrist, which is a Christian concept, an apocalyptic concept. What does that mean to you? What is the Antichrist?
How much time do we have?
We've got as much time as you have to talk about the Antichrist.
All right. Well, I could talk about it for a long time. I think there's always a question. How do we articulate, some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have, and they're all framed in this sort of runaway dystopian science text. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we could come up with. There's a risk of, bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. What do you do about nuclear weapons? We have a United Nations with real teeth that controls them, and they're controlled by an international political order. And then something like this, is also, what do we do about AI? And we need global compute governance. We need, a one world government to control all the computers, log every single keystroke to make sure people don't program, a dangerous AI. And I've been wondering whether that's sort of a, going from, the frying pan into the fire. And so the atheist.
A New York jury has found former President Donald Trump liable for sexually abusing writer E. Jean Carroll in a Manhattan department store in the 1990s.
The former president, guilty on all 34 counts.
Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, guilty. Count 5, guilty. Count 6, guilty. Count 7, guilty. Count 8, guilty. Count 9, guilty. Count 10, guilty. Count 11, guilty. Count 12, guilty. Count 13, guilty. Count 14, guilty. Count 15, guilty. Count 16, guilty. Count 17, guilty. Count 18, guilty. Count 19, guilty. Count 20, guilty. Count 21, 21, guilty. Count 22, guilty. Count 23, guilty. Count 24, guilty. Count 25, guilty. Count 26, guilty. Count 27, guilty. Count 28, guilty. Count 29, guilty. Count 30, guilty. Count 31, guilty. Count 32, guilty. Count 33, guilty. Count 34, guilty.
I mean, why do I have to, repent? Why do I have to ask for forgiveness?
Right, but have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. The vaccine is one of the greatest achievements of mankind.
American companies must lead the world in cellular technology. 5G networks must be secure. They must be strong.
Sir, do you believe you're the second coming of God? Sir, do you believe you're the second coming of God? I am the chosen one.
Nobody has done more for Christianity. Nobody has done more for religion of all type than me.
Really funny. Really funny. It's a practice that we probably will be recommending into the future long after the enemy is gone, this particular enemy is gone. We're also making every effort to provide
It's been 7 hours since you heard about somebody ripping that John Paul II picture off on Saturday Night Live. And that time that Edward Money from the Conjure Mule was accused of doing something to a woman. And that time that Jeffrey and Diana Jenkins and James Blunt and her ex-girlfriend was murdered and drugged by her ex-boyfriend Hayden Panettiere, that creep. Oh, that's just nothing compares to those sickos. We're like that guy in the island with all those messed up tunnels. And somehow Erica Kurt got involved with all that on the real estate. I could eat a vegan diet in a restaurant so I don't have to eat any type of meat. Thinking compares to thinking pairs you. Even if Shannon ran off from that creepy Jeffrey guy somewhere. But so long as that creepy psycho, those sickos on boats and somewhere in under tunnels overseas. Nothing stops lonely tears falling from sickos and eating cannibalism with a mole like God in the Bible with a shrine at somewhere at a temple. That's why I never ever had every girlfriend date, because they could always be sicko freaks like Sicko Man too. I went to the doctor, and guess what? The doctor could have told me if I had to go with that, have a type of kid that's in compares to sickos in the Catholic Church and Mormonism sicko cults like Warren Jeffs or Joseph Smith being a polygamist. Or time that the Israelites worshiped Moloch after they got out of the slavery in Israel after 400 years. Nothing compares like a bunch of sickos that need to burn in. With all those demons that need to be cast out of these possessed sickos. All these flowers might fall or grow over dead the next day. And all these sicko on certain websites trafficking people like that time that Jenna Presley, Brittany Rusmith at it, Charlie Guy in 2016 from his thing for Eric Kirk might had him assassinated because of the certain places and documents on the internet. Nothing compares to sickos and murderers like you. Compares to sickos and murderers like you. Compares to compares you triumphing all over evil. It's been 7 hours since you heard about somebody ripping that John Paul II picture off on Saturday Night Live. And that time that Edward Money from the Conjure Movie was accused of doing something to a woman. And that time that Jeffrey and Diana Jenkins and James Blunt and her ex-girlfriend was murdered and drugged by her ex-boyfriend Hayden Panettiere, that creep. Oh, that's nothing compares to those sickos. Or like that guy in the island with all those messed up tunnels. And somehow Erica Kirk got involved with all that on the real estate. I could eat a vegan diet in a restaurant so I don't have to eat any type of meat. Thinking compares to you. Even if Shannon ran off from that creepy Jeffrey guy somewhere. For so long, because that creepy psycho, those sickos on boats and somewhere in under tunnels overseas. Nothing stops lonely tears falling from sickos and eating cannibalism with a mole like God in the Bible with a shrine at somewhere at a temple. That's why I never ever had every girlfriend date, because they could always be sicko freaks like Sicko Man too. I went to the doctor, and guess what? The doctor could have told me if I had to go with that, have a type of kid that's in compares to sickos in the Catholic Church and Mormonism sicko cults like Warren Jeffs or Joseph Smith being a polygamist. Or time that the Israelites worshiped Moloch after they got out of the slavery in Israel after 400 years. Nothing compares like a bunch of sickos that need to burn in. With all those demons that need to be cast out of these possessed sickos. All these flowers might fall or grow over dead the next day. And all these sicko on certain websites trafficking people like that time that Jenna Presley, Brittany Rusmith at it, Charlie Guy in 2016 from his thing For Eric Kirk might had him assassinated because of the certain places and documents on the internet. Nothing compares to sickos and murderers like you. Compares to sickos and murderers like you. Compares to compare you triumphing all over evil.